she was just the secretary, until he discovered the child wasn't his wife's. Some truths don't destroy. They return what life once stole and heal precisely where the pain began. The sound of rain against glass. The camera glides over the city's reflection. São Paulo, late afternoon. Traffic stalled, muffled horns, a world moving too fast. But inside a hospital room, time stands still. Arthur sits motionless, facing a closed door. Same suit as always, but in his eyes, something fractured. A man on the edge of something he can't yet name. The doctor approaches, hesitant. In his hands, a white envelope. Mr. Vasconcelos, the results are in. Arthur opens the envelope with trembling fingers. Cold light reflects off the paper. He reads slowly, searching for a loophole to deny what he already fears. The DNA test is conclusive. Henrique is not Bianca's biological son. He doesn't react at first. Then, a shift in his breathing. His jaw tightens, eyes fill, but no tears fall. Across the room, Laura sits silently. She shouldn't be there, but she stayed, out of instinct, empathy, maybe something deeper. She couldn't let him face the collapse of his world alone. Arthur folds the test results, his voice low, distant. He's all I have, Laura. But she didn't yet know that everything would begin at that exact moment. The past unfolds in slow, fragmented flashes. Years ago, the offices of Vasconcelos Investments were another world entirely. Marble hallways, expensive silence, and ambition in every glance. Laura was the youngest secretary among a sea of executives, discreet, efficient. Her quiet presence contrasted with the sharpness of the place. She didn't just anticipate Arthur's needs, she understood the rhythm of his breath in the spaces between meetings. At first, he barely noticed her. She spoke little, moved like someone trying not to exist, but slowly something in her presence began to calm him. He was trapped in an arranged marriage, built on expectations and appearances. Bianca, the daughter of a major shareholder, was never truly a partner. She was an agreement. What grew with Laura happened in the margins. Late-night hours reviewing contracts, Arthur, by habit, checking reports long after everyone had left. Their first real conversation happened during one of those nights. Arthur asked, "Don't you ever get tired of being invisible?" Without looking up from the keyboard, she answered, "Invisibility is the safest place for those who can't afford to make mistakes." Silence. But his gaze lingered a little too long. That was the beginning. In the months that followed, routine became connection. Small gestures, coffee quietly left on his desk before meetings, a borrowed jacket when the AC froze the room. No declarations, no obvious words, just a quiet, almost shy love. But complete, until a business trip placed them in the same hotel in another city for 3 days, and in the space between solitude and guilt, the unspoken unraveled. No promises, no future, just the inevitable surrender of two souls exhausted by emptiness. After that night, Arthur pulled away, fear of scandal. The weight of his last name, Bianca's constant watchfulness, everything drove him from Laura. Sensing the end, she resigned without notice and vanished. He didn't search for her, not out of indifference, but because he believed silence was the only way to protect her. The marriage with Bianca was patched back together for convenience. She forgave him after suspecting something, and soon after announced a pregnancy. Arthur believed life was offering him a second chance. But when Henrique was born, the void remained. The child was sweet, but something was always off. The bond never fully formed. Something just didn't fit. Elsewhere in the city, Laura was living the opposite of peace. She discovered the pregnancy alone. Too afraid to reach out, she chose to raise the child in silence. But fate was cruel. A premature labor, a collapse, the sterile noise of a hospital, then nothing. When she awoke, they told her the baby hadn't survived. Medical complications. She never saw him, never held him. The pain was so deep her soul shut down. She returned to survival, temporary jobs, long nights, a sick mother. and never again let herself believe in love. Years passed. Then fate, or something like it, brought her back to Vasconcelos. The company had grown. A new HR director, unaware of her history, hired her. On her first day, she walked into a boardroom and saw him at the head of the table. Arthur looked up, motionless. Same eyes, same silence. Neither said a word, but their eyes said everything time hadn't erased. The days that followed were filled with quiet tension. Arthur pretended to be unaffected, but watched her every move. Laura avoided his gaze, but felt her heart betray her logic. Then, one afternoon, Bianca's secretary called. Their son had been in an accident. The nanny was panicked. Bianca out of the country. Arthur rushed out. Laura, without thinking, followed. At the hospital, destiny made its next move. The same hospital where Laura had once given birth. The circle had returned to its starting point. When the doctor handed Arthur a blood compatibility report, needed for an urgent transfusion, he noticed something was wrong. The boy's blood type made it impossible for Arthur or Bianca to be the biological parent. Doubt took root. Arthur's eyes met Laura's. She shivered. Something inside her recognized those eyes, the child's eyes, as something painfully familiar. Arthur folded the paper and slipped it into his pocket. The truth had no shape yet, but the whisper of it was already deafening. She was just the secretary, until fate returned what the lie had stolen. Arthur didn't sleep that night. The hum of traffic mixed with the cold buzz of the air conditioner and the doctor's words still echoing in his mind. He tried to reason it away, but every time he closed his eyes, he saw Enrique's face, the same jawline. The way he furrowed his brow when thinking, tiny details he had never dared to read as fate. Laura didn't sleep either. She stared at the ceiling, as if waiting for the past to finally show some decency and disappear. But the past had other plans. Something was coming. She could feel it in her chest, a truth she wasn't sure she was ready to face. The next morning, she arrived at the office before everyone else. Cold, fluorescent lights reflected off the polished floors. Silence filled the space. She placed a stack of reports on his desk, as she always did. But as she turned to leave, the door opened behind her. Arthur stepped in. Same suit. Tired eyes. Pale face. For a moment, they just stood there, facing each other in silence. "You didn't sleep," she said softly. "Neither did you." There was something in their voices. Tenderness born only in those who've been hurt too much. Arthur ran a hand through his hair, and after a long pause asked, "Do you think fate tries to fix the mistakes we make?" Laura hesitated. "I think fate only returns what was denied." "And what if what it returns hurts too much? Then maybe that's exactly what we're meant to face." His gaze lingered on her too long. Laura looked away, gathered the folders, and left, before her voice could betray her heart. In the days that followed, something shifted between them. Nothing was said. But everything was present. Work meetings became longer. Arthur found excuses to keep her near, and Laura, despite knowing the danger, couldn't resist the pull to stay. One afternoon, Arthur asked her to join him for an off-site meeting. On the way, the car passed through a part of the city Laura knew too well. Just 2 blocks from the hospital where she had given birth. The air felt thin. Arthur noticed the shift in her expression. "You all right?" "Just a memory." "Of what?" "Of something I left behind." His tone softened. "Sometimes what we think we've left behind is just waiting to be found again." She didn't answer. She turned to the window and watched people rush by under the sun. "I thought he was just a wounded man," she thought, "but there's something more." That evening, back at the office, she walked into his office to deliver a document. Arthur was alone, staring out the window. The city lights sprawled beneath him like a glowing abyss. Laura paused at the door. "Can I leave this here?" "Come in." She stepped forward, placed the paper on his desk and turned to go, but his voice stopped her. "You know what's strange?" She turned back, unsure whether to answer. looking at a child and feeling like he's part of you, even when there's no reason for it. Laura froze. Her breath caught for a moment. Arthur continued, unaware of the weight of his own words. Henrique, he has something I can't explain. Like I knew him before I ever met him. Laura stepped closer, eyes locked on his. Maybe that's what real love is. Recognition. Recognition of something that already existed, even before it ever happened. Silence wrapped around them. Neither dared to speak. It was as if every word they had never said hung suspended between them. But before the truth could find its voice, the phone rang. She stepped back, gathered her things, and left. Arthur answered. It was Bianca, her voice cold. Calculated. She talked about events, image, investments. He listened, but his mind was elsewhere. When the call ended, he realized the faint scent of Laura still lingered in the room, and for the first time he felt afraid, not of scandal, not of his wife, but of what that scent had awakened inside him. The next day, a charity event brought employees and their families together. Laura was handling reception. That's when she saw Henrique, outside the hospital for the first time. The boy ran between tables, laughing, curious, the same energy she once dreamed about. When he tripped and fell, Laura instinctively bent down to help him. Henrique looked up at her and smiled. You have the same eyes as my dad. Laura's world tilted. Arthur, watching from a distance, froze. The boy hugged her leg and ran off again. Neither she nor Arthur could pretend anymore. That night, as she was leaving the event, Arthur caught up with her in the parking lot. Laura, wait. She stopped. Her hands trembled just slightly. What is it? That boy. Don't say it. I need to understand. She looked at him, tired, as if carrying a secret for far too long. There are questions that, once asked, change everything. Then tell me what I need to hear. The silence between them stretched, and Laura, in a voice barely above a whisper, said, The past never stays where we leave it. And she walked away. In the days that followed, Arthur couldn't think of anything else. The test. The boy. The eyes. The past. Everything swirled in his mind like a puzzle desperate to assemble itself. Meanwhile, Bianca was planning an international trip, reminding him to focus on the company's public image. But he was no longer the man who bowed to appearances. He began digging quietly, called the hospital, asked for old records. The system had changed. Names were lost in digital dust. But one detail cut through the noise. During the same week Henrique was born, a woman named Laura Mendez had been admitted, also pregnant, also with complications. The truth, until then, had been a shadow. But Arthur knew, when destiny starts whispering, silence is no longer an option. Laura, on the other hand, was running from herself, working harder, avoiding glances, avoiding his name. But every time she saw Henrique wandering the halls of the company, brought in by his nanny to visit his father, she felt something raw stir inside her, a pain laced with tenderness. There was something achingly familiar in the way he smiled, as if time was trying to remind her of something she had chosen not to know. One night, returning home, she found an envelope at her door. No sender. Inside, a copy of Henrique's blood test and a single sheet of paper. Blank, except for one handwritten question. Are you sure your child died? Laura sank onto the couch, trembling, her heartbeat out of rhythm. She stood slowly, walked to the window, and stared at the city lights. And suddenly everything began to align. The hospital, the dates, the child's eyes. The past had found its voice again, and she knew pretending was no longer possible. That night Laura hovered between fear and clarity. She barely slept. Each time she closed her eyes, she saw Henrique, not as she'd seen him at the corporate event, but as she had once dreamed him, a serene baby, pale skin, a faint mark on the left eyebrow, the same mark now visible on a child who called another woman mother. At sunrise, soft light filtered through her curtains. The envelope still sat on the table. She got up, made coffee, but couldn't drink it. The bitterness ran deeper than the brew. Same hospital, same day, same delivery. There was something time had buried, and no matter how afraid she was, she knew she had to face it. In the days that followed, Laura began watching the boy from a distance, with a gaze that mixed guilt and awe. Henrique visited the company often with his nanny, running carefree through the halls, oblivious to the heavy glances that trailed behind him. Arthur, when he brought him, always greeted Laura with quiet gentleness. He never mentioned the test, never asked. But the silence between them had changed. Not the silence of denial, but the stillness before a truth too big to hold back. One Friday morning, waiting for the elevator, Laura heard Henrique's voice calling for his dad down the hallway. She turned by instinct. The boy ran, stumbled and scraped his knee. Arthur, quick to react, scooped him up, but the child began to cry. Laura stepped forward. Arthur, flustered, fumbled with a tissue, hands shaking. She knelt down calmly, took the cloth, wiped the wound with quiet care. "There, it's all right," she whispered. "Just a little scratch." Henrique looked up at her, still sniffling, and leaned into her shoulder. Arthur watched. That image, the boy resting against her chest, stirred something in him he couldn't name. Laura stood, barely breathing, then said softly, "I'll take him to your office." Arthur didn't respond. He simply followed, silently. On the way, the boy chatted about a dream, his fear of heights, an upcoming birthday. And then, without realizing the weight of his words, he said, "Mom says I look like Dad when I'm serious, but Grandma says I don't look like either of them." Arthur swallowed hard. Laura pretended not to hear. But the words hung in the air. Undeniable, irreversible. That same afternoon, Arthur asked Laura to come into his office. She stepped inside, unsure if she should. He stood by the window, an open box of old files resting on the desk. Inside, company documents, yellowed newspaper clippings, old photographs, among them a group photo from the maternity ward where Henrique had been born. He handed it to her. "Do you recognize anyone here?" Laura studied the image. It took her a few seconds to process. Doctors, nurses, mothers holding their newborns. Then, in a quiet corner of the photo, a woman in a lab coat, a hospital bracelet barely visible on her wrist, her name, printed in faded lowercase letters. Laura's body trembled. She looked at Arthur. "Where did you get this?" "The hospital archives photos from their maternity program. I found it by chance, in the digital records." She took a breath. "So it's true." "What is?" "I was there. Same day, same floor." Arthur stepped closer. His tone shifted. "Laura, I need you to tell me the truth." She backed away, tense, eyes fixed on the floor. "I got pregnant, Arthur, not long after you married." Silence flooded the room. He took a step forward, as if trying to close the space between them. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because by the time I found out, you were already trapped in that life." "And the baby?" She looked at him, and the words came out like breath. "They said he was premature, that he didn't survive. They said. I never saw the body. They never let me hold him." Arthur closed his eyes. The pieces clicked into place. The test, the hospital, the dates. It all aligned with a precision that hurt. "Laura, are you saying—" "I'm not saying anything. I just can't ignore what time is trying to show me." She left before her tears could betray what her pride tried to contain. In the days that followed, the office became a minefield. Bianca, unaware of the truth, began to suspect something was wrong. The missed calls, the strange silences, the lingering glances. She called her family's lawyer and demanded Arthur's movements be tracked. "He's hiding something," she said. "And I won't be the last to know." Meanwhile, Arthur retraced the timeline, dug through old records, returned to the hospital, spoke with retired nurses. One of them froze when he mentioned Laura Mendez. "I remember her," she said. "Young, pale, alone. There was chaos that night. 2 high-risk deliveries at once. One of the babies was rushed to intensive care. But I don't know what happened after that. Arthur thanked her and left, but the nurse followed him to the parking lot. Mr. Vasconcelos, there were rumors that night. A powerful family paid for a special procedure. No names were ever mentioned, but money spoke louder than protocol. He didn't need anything else. Bianca, the hospital, the switch. The next morning, Laura received a discreet envelope. Inside, a copy of Henrique's birth record. The file number matched hers. The signatures were different. But the admission code, a sequence identifying the delivery, was identical. She said nothing, felt everything. Her body felt heavy and light at once. She left work early, wandered through the city without aim. The sound of cars, the heat, the rhythm of life, it all felt distant. At some point she stopped in front of a store window, caught her reflection in the glass, a tired face but alive. Behind her in the glass the city spun on, unaware that in that very moment an entire life was being rewritten. That night, Arthur went to her home. No call, no warning. When she opened the door, his eyes said everything. He held a folded piece of paper. It's here. What is? The confirmation. The birth code matches. Then, the child Bianca raised is ours. Laura brought her hands to her face, eyes wet. That can't be. It is. Neither of them spoke for a long time. Then she asked, "What now?" "Now, Laura, the truth belongs to us. But the world outside doesn't forgive truths that threaten empires." And Bianca, on the other side of the city, was already beginning to sense everything. In the days that followed, Laura and Arthur met in secret, trying to understand what to do. There was no manual for what they were living. It felt as though their entire lives had been written backwards, and only now the lines were finally beginning to make sense. Arthur watched her with a mix of guilt and awe. Laura in turn carried the weight of a love that never had the time to exist, yet somehow remained alive in the face of a child who had no idea what fate had done to him. And while their love quietly resurfaced, Bianca's shadow drew nearer. She didn't know what was happening, but she felt it, and in families like the Vasconcelos, feeling is all it takes to start a war. Bianca Vasconcelos had always possessed a particular talent, sensing the moment something was about to slip from her control. She didn't need proof. It was enough, the quiet in her husband's voice, the way he looked away too quickly, the way he came home later than usual, and most of all, the way he said her name, Laura. There was something in the way that name left his lips, soft, unguarded, that no longer sounded professional, and what once had been intuition began to take shape as evidence. It all began with a mistake, a message sent by accident. Arthur, exhausted, typed a reminder on his phone. Check maternity records with Laura. He forgot to delete it. That night, while he was in the shower, the phone buzzed on the nightstand. Bianca read it. At first, she assumed it referred to another Laura, a client, maybe a doctor. But what broke her came minutes later, a second message from Arthur himself. "I can't hide what I've discovered anymore." She didn't scream, didn't cry. She stood up, calmly walked to the mirror, and stared at her reflection. A faint smile touched her lips. She knew exactly what to do. The next morning, she arrived at the company unannounced, greeted employees with her usual rehearsed elegance, asked to be announced. When Laura saw her step into Arthur's office, a chill ran down her spine. Bianca had the kind of presence that changed the air in a room. "What are you doing here?" Arthur asked, trying to hide his tension. "Taking care of what's mine." She sat across from him, crossed her legs. "Do you have any idea how many people are watching you, Arthur? How many think it's curious? Just how devoted your secretary is?" He snapped his laptop shut, jaw tight. "I don't know what you're implying." "Oh, I think you do. I've always known." Her voice was a drip of poison, slow and precise. "What do you want, Bianca?" "I want to remind you, You have a last name and a son." His gaze held steady, but his heartbeat spiked. "Don't bring Henrique into this." "Oh, darling, Enrique is exactly why I'm here." Laura was summoned into the room. As she entered, the air turned thick, like there wasn't enough oxygen to go around. Bianca smiled politely, but there was iron behind it. "So it's you." Laura remained standing, unsure of the scope of what was unfolding. "Me?" The perfect secretary, the model employee. The woman who always knows what my husband wants, before he even says it. Arthur stood. "Bianca, this isn't necessary, isn't it? Because I think we're well past pretending." Laura's voice stayed even, though it wavered slightly. "I only work here. And that's exactly what you're going to keep doing, just not anywhere near us." Arthur stepped in. "If you lay a hand on her—" "Me?" Bianca interrupted, with a bitter smile. "Who would have thought I'd need to defend my marriage affair from an employee?" She rose, adjusted her purse, and walked to the door. Before leaving, she looked at Laura one last time. "It must be hard, right? Living in the shadow of something that will never be yours." The door shut behind her, a sharp echoing sound. Arthur exhaled, rubbed his face with both hands. "She knows more than she's letting on." "Are you going to fire me?" "No, never." "Then are you going to fight her?" "If I have to." Laura looked at him with quiet sorrow. "Bianca isn't the kind of woman you fight. She destroys things in silence." And she was right. That same week, Laura's name vanished from payroll. No notice. Her access badge was deactivated. Security was instructed not to let her in. Arthur found out hours later. Furious, he stormed into Bianca's office demanding answers, but she was ready. She opened a folder. Photos, taken by a private investigator, Arthur and Laura, on a quiet street, eyes locked. In one of them, he touched her face, more than enough to turn suspicion into certainty. "You really want to talk about loyalty?" Bianca asked, her voice cold. "I just got there first." What followed was collapse. Arthur tried to reach Laura, but she had vanished, changed her number, left her apartment, disappeared, not out of fear, but out of instinct. She knew Bianca wouldn't stop until there was nothing left to destroy. Meanwhile, Bianca took control of the narrative. "Arthur is under pressure, he's confused. That woman took advantage of him." People believed her. The finance press released subtle headlines, and Laura's name began to circulate, always with insinuation. Arthur could endure only so much. One night, he left the family estate, taking nothing but a suitcase and an envelope, the documents proving the child swap. But before he walked out for good, he stopped by his son's room. Henrique was asleep, breathing softly, his face bathed in shadows. Arthur knelt beside the bed and whispered, "One day you'll understand, and when that day comes, I hope you'll look at me, without hate." He left in silence. Bianca watched from the staircase, eyes cold, no tears. Laura, meanwhile, was trying to rebuild, quietly. She spent her days caring for her sick mother and avoiding any news, but fate, once again, refused to let her rest. One morning, a child knocked at her door, held out a wrinkled letter. Said it was from the man in the suit who looked sad. The note was scribbled hastily. "If you want to know what's real, go to São Lucas Hospital, records room, drawer 12. Laura went. The hallway smelled of disinfectant and memories. An older woman behind the desk recognized her instantly. "You came back." Laura simply nodded. The woman opened drawer 12 and retrieved a yellowed envelope. Laura Mendes, 2008. Inside, her original medical file, and clipped to it, a duplicate intake form. Second name, Bianca Vasconcelos. Same date, same hospital bed number. Laura closed her eyes. Her heart thundered. There was no more guessing, no more doubt. What time had hidden, the lie had finally revealed. Arthur returned days later, tired, worn, but resolute. She met him with the same gaze she'd had the first time they found themselves alone, outside the office years ago. a mixture of fear and surrender. They're going to try to destroy you, Arthur. They already have. And the boy? He's safe for now, but Bianca won't stop. Laura's eyes fell to the envelope in his hands, the one with the test results, the documents, the proof. So what do? We tell the truth. But in their world, truth came at a cost. In the days that followed, Arthur called for a board meeting, citing the need for transparency. Bianca showed up flawless, ready to publicly humiliate him. What she didn't expect was what came next. Arthur presented falsified financial reports, shady transactions in her name, and finally the documents from the maternity ward. Silence spread through the room like smoke. Bianca laughed, trying to regain control. You'd throw away your entire reputation for some woman. For her, yes, and your son. My son deserves to know who he is. And just like that, the empire she had built began to crumble. Before walking out, she delivered one final blow. You'll regret giving up your name is for someone who never belonged to your world. In that moment, Laura understood. Their love had never been a mistake. It was a reclamation. The universe hadn't torn them apart by chance. It had simply waited for the right time to return what was theirs. But there was still one truth waiting to be faced, the one that mattered most: Henrique. And that reunion would require more than love. It would demand silence, truth, and courage. The scandal broke like a sudden storm. The day after the board meeting, headlines painted the Vasconcelos family's downfall in brutal detail. But they didn't speak of love or lost children or truth. They spoke of power, of betrayal, of collapse. Arthur was suspended from the company's board. Bianca filed a defamation suit and locked herself away in her family estate. And Laura, once again, disappeared. The silence that followed was the kind that echoes after an explosion. The city moved on. But for them, time stood still. Arthur rented a small apartment in the old part of town, a quiet space, a single bed, a table, half a bottle of wine. There, he felt the weight of everything he'd lost, but also something else, a strange new freedom, the feeling of, perhaps for the first time, living outside the shadow of his name. Henrique remained with Bianca. The court granted her temporary custody until the case could be resolved. Arthur didn't fight it. He knew the boy wouldn't understand. Not yet. But every night he sat before a photograph, a snapshot from years ago, taken at a company event. Laura beside him. That memory hurt, but it also sheltered him. Somewhere deep inside he knew that boy carried more than his blood. He carried the story that life had stolen. Laura, meanwhile, had taken refuge far away. A small house on the outskirts of a place called Campo Verde. There she cared for her ailing mother and tried day by day to remember how to breathe again. The mornings were cold, the ground wet with dew. She would walk to the river at dawn and stand still, just listening to the flow of the water. It was the closest thing to peace. Sometimes she thought of Arthur, of the boy, of how life, in all its cruelty, had tangled the threads. But she also knew running had become her way of surviving. And she couldn't afford to lose anything else. One winter afternoon, a black car stopped in front of her house. The driver stepped out, left an envelope at the gate, and left without a word. Laura watched from the window, unsure. She opened the gate, took the envelope inside. Inside was a single page. At the top, the seal of the court. At the bottom, Arthur's signature. A formal request. Voluntary witness statement for a paternity review. In the margin, a single handwritten line. I don't want to take what's yours, I just want to give back what was taken from us. Laura read the letter once, then again, and again. Her heart pounding, the paper trembling in her hands. She stood there until the sun began to set. That night she didn't sleep. She walked the house in silence, touched the walls, stared into the mirror. She barely recognized the woman looking back at her, but in her eyes, there was something new, not rage, but resolve. She knew. She couldn't let this story fade in silence. The day of the hearing arrived. The room was small, white walls, the scent of old paper clinging to the air. Arthur sat there already, gaze steady, but tired. When Laura stepped inside, time seemed to pause. It had been weeks, maybe months, since they'd last seen each other. He stood. She offered a restrained nod. The judge began the process, formal, distant. The DNA test would be redone, this time under strict supervision. Henrique waited just outside, accompanied by a social worker. Laura saw him for only a moment, through the window of the adjoining room. But it was enough. That same gaze, that same smile, a reflection of everything she had lost, and at last, found again. Arthur watched her face and saw something different. She was no longer the frightened woman from before. She had become someone who had learned how to survive her own abyss. The weeks that followed were steeped in silence, the kind that eats you from the inside. Arthur resumed work quietly, now at a smaller firm, away from the spotlight. Laura began teaching languages to children. They each moved forward, but the invisible thread between them never loosened. And then one overcast morning the envelope arrived, just like the one from months ago, the one that had shattered everything. Arthur opened it slowly. There it was, undeniable. Henrique was the biological son of Arthur Vasconcelos and Laura Mendez. He sat with it in silence, didn't cry. Just placed the paper on the table, stared out the window, and took a long breath. Then he picked up the phone and dialed a number he hadn't used in months, but had never forgotten. Laura answered. "I already know," she said before he could speak. "And now?" he asked. "Now we have to be strong. Do you want me to fight for custody?" "No. I want you to fight for him, for the truth." A few days later, they met in a quiet park outside the city. Henrique played just a few feet away under the watch of a social worker. It was the first time Laura had seen him up close, without the fog of doubt. The boy ran, climbed a swing, then looked at her curiously. "Are you my dad's friend?" he asked. Laura hesitated, then answered, "I used to be, and I still am, just in a different way." "Are you sad?" he pressed. She smiled, soft, worn. "I've been sad before." Arthur approached. And for a moment, the three of them stood there, not yet as a family, but as three souls relearning how to recognize each other. The news made its rounds again, but this time the tone was softer. The public, tired of scandal, moved on. Bianca, pressured by media and legal scrutiny, left the country, now living in Europe, funded by what remained of her fortune. Arthur returned to work, now as a partner in a new company. Laura accepted a teaching position, not in corporate offices but at a public school, where she taught English to children who still believed in the future. One afternoon, after class, her phone rang. Arthur's voice was calm, but something in his tone carried weight. "Can you come here?" "Where?" "The park. Same place." When she arrived, the sun was setting. Henrique sat on the grass, drawing. Arthur greeted her with a faint smile. "He wants to show you something." Laura walked over. The boy held up his drawing, a crayon sketch of 3 figures holding hands. He pointed. "This is Mommy, this is Daddy, and that's me." Her heart skipped. She looked at Arthur. He simply nodded. Henrique studied her with sweet curiosity. "Dad said I can call you Mommy, and if you want." Laura didn't answer. She just embraced him. The boy nestled into her neck, silent and still. Arthur stood nearby, unmoving, eyes glassy. Words would never be enough for that moment. The wind stirred softly, lifting leaves around them. The world kept turning, but for them, it was as if time had finally found its center. Laura lifted her gaze, met his. "And now?" she asked, voice trembling. Arthur reached for her hand. and for the boys. "Now," he said, "we begin again." She nodded, too full to speak. And in that silence they finally found peace. The reunion in the park was the beginning of something none of them could quite name. It wasn't a family, not yet. Not just a biological link either. It was the slow, careful reconstruction of everything fear and time had once dismantled. Arthur started visiting Henrique often. At first the boy was shy, watching his father from a distance, trying to understand what fate had handed him. But soon that hesitation softened into trust. They began to recognize themselves in each other, the way they laughed, brushed back their hair, even the small habit of biting the lower lip when deep in thought. It was as if their blood carried a quiet call, an ancestral echo pulling them toward each other. Laura, meanwhile, stayed back. She watched with a tender caution, heart torn between joy and fear. She knew how dangerous love could be, not just romantic love, but the kind that lives in a mother's chest, the love she had been denied and now received with years of delay. Sometimes she would watch them play and it hurt in the most beautiful way. Time had reversed itself. The child she once wept for, the child she never got to hold, was now running freely in front of her, laughing, breathing, whole. One crisp autumn Sunday, Arthur invited her to dinner. It was the first time they'd be alone since everything fell apart. She hesitated, then said yes. He waited for her at the door of the restaurant, dark coat on, that same steady gaze she remembered. For a few seconds they just stood there, measuring each other with their eyes, checking if the other still existed. They spoke little. The clinking of cutlery, the low hum of conversations, and the soft music filled the spaces between them. Arthur broke the silence first. "Sometimes I think I spent half my life trying to control things that were never mine to hold." "And the other half?" she asked. "Trying to fix what I broke because of that." She looked at him, long and slow. "Not everything broken can be fixed." "Maybe not," he said, "but the truth always finds a way to remain." She looked away, holding back the weight that built in her chest. He leaned forward slightly. "Laura." "No," she said, gently but firmly. "Not now." He leaned back, nodded. "Then let me just say thank you." "For what?" "For not disappearing." She smiled for the first time in what felt like years, not fully but with a spark of peace that hadn't been there before. In the days that followed, things began to feel natural. Henrique, now aware of the truth, didn't seem confused. Children have a way of accepting what adults complicate. He called Laura aunt in public, but in private, when they were alone, he'd whisper Mom softly as if testing a word he wasn't sure he had permission to say. The first time he said it, her knees nearly gave out. She pulled him close, buried her face in his hair. That familiar scent, a bridge back to labor, loss, and now restoration. Arthur watched from across the room. Didn't say a word. He had imagined that moment 1,000 times. Laura and the boy, whole, unafraid. No more lies. And in that silence he understood. True love isn't about what you hold on to. It's what you're willing to give back to the world. But fate still had one last trial. Bianca returned, unannounced. A rainy afternoon. Same cold presence, same perfume. She asked to see the boy. Arthur agreed, not out of duty, but because Henrique deserved every truth, even the hardest ones. Laura waited in the next room. She could hear Bianca's voice, soft, rehearsed, polished like old porcelain. "Mommy had to go away, sweetheart, but I thought of you every day." Silence. Then Henrique replied, "Daddy says my mommy is Laura." No answer, only the ticking of a nearby clock. When Bianca exited, her eyes were dull but her face calm. She passed Laura without speaking, paused at the door, then quietly, "He was always more yours than mine," and left. No drama, no plea, just a woman, outdone by her own lie. After that, everything settled quietly. Henrique moved in with Arthur and Laura. The court approved the arrangement. His name was changed. Now, officially, Henrique Vasconcelos Mendez. He wanted both names, said it was only fair. The house was modest, simple, but it held a kind of peace that never existed in mansions. Arthur left work early just to have dinner with them. Laura began writing again, fragments of memory, pieces of life that deserved to be put on paper. And Henrique grew up surrounded by laughter, music, and bedtime stories. One night, after the boy had fallen asleep, Laura and Arthur sat on the porch. City lights blinked in the distance. Curtains swayed in the gentle breeze. She held a mug of tea. He a glass of wine. Their silence wasn't awkward anymore. It was a kind of quiet companionship. Arthur finally asked, "Are you still afraid of me?" She took her time. "No, I'm afraid of what time does to people. Time only ruins what isn't real." She met his gaze calm. "And what is real, Arthur? What survives?" Their eyes held, no more dodging, no more defense. Just the quiet truth of a story that, despite everything, survived. He stepped closer, rested his forehead against hers, a simple, timeless gesture. No words were needed anymore, and in that moment, time bent. The past, present, and future existed all at once in the breath shared between two people who had finally found home in each other. There were no promises, no endings, only the quiet acceptance of what had always been inevitable. In the days that followed, life moved on, quietly, without fanfare or grand gestures. But there was beauty in the small things, shared breakfasts. Henrique's laughter echoing through the house after school, the casual touch of a hand during the evening news. What used to feel like a prison, routine, now felt like freedom. Laura finally understood. Life didn't need to be repaired, it only needed to continue. And love. Love didn't begin at the moment of meeting, it was born from staying. Arthur, watching her from across the room, knew. She was both the starting line and the finish, the mistake, the forgiveness, and the destiny in disguise. A full year passed since the truth came to light, and in that time nothing felt like a victory, but rather a return to what was always meant to be. Their home was small, on the edge of a quieter town. No luxury, no chauffeurs, no dinners dressed in false perfection. But paradoxically, it was the first time their lives held real peace. Arthur now worked as a legal advisor for small businesses. He had discovered that work without ambition could still be meaningful. Henrique, now 9, was curious and talkative, asking endless questions that Laura answered with a warmth Arthur had never known how to give before. And Laura was whole again. She had returned to writing, memories, unsent letters, reflections on forgiveness and the nature of love. It was how she untangled what was left of the chaos. But one notebook was different. Leather cover, slightly yellowed pages. It was for Henrique. Words he would only read as an adult, not a confession, but an emotional inheritance. One morning as she was tidying his room, she found a drawing on his desk. A hospital, a man and a woman holding a baby. In the corner, in crooked little letters, the beginning of everything. Laura sat at the edge of his bed and stared at it. She didn't cry. She just smiled, the kind of smile that knows the past has already served its purpose. Arthur found her there later, still holding the drawing. "Did he ask you anything?" he asked. "No, I think he already knows." "And you?" "I do too." He sat beside her. For a moment, the house was silent. There was no need to talk about what they had lost, or even what they had found again. Life had rearranged itself, as if the universe had finally settled into rhythm. Later that day, they took Henrique to visit the hospital. It was his idea. Laura hesitated at first. It wasn't a place she had ever wanted to return to, but she said yes. It was a grey afternoon, the sky low and heavy. The hospital smelled like antiseptic and old memories, but the memories no longer stung. Henrique wandered through the halls, curious. "Was I born here?" he asked. "You were," Arthur said. "And Mummy was here too." Laura nodded. Yes, I was. He looked at her, then quietly took her hand. Then I guess this is where we got lost and found each other again? The words cut through the silence like something no adult could have said better. Laura gripped his hand, her eyes welled up, and for the first time she felt it. The cycle was complete. When they left, the wind carried the smell of rain. They walked in silence. Arthur opened the umbrella, but Henrique ran ahead, laughing, letting himself get wet. Laura watched, and for a moment her body relaxed. It felt like life was breathing again. Arthur turned to her. Do you still think about how things could have been different? I do, but not with regret. Then why? Because all the wrong turns, and they brought us here. And is here enough for you? She looked at him, calm and certain. It's more than I ever imagined I'd have. He nodded, extended his hand. She took it. Together, they walked back to the car. That night, after Henrique fell asleep, they sat on the porch. The wind rustled through the leaves, and the distant sound of the river mixed with the night's quiet. Laura rested her head on Arthur's shoulder. He wrapped his arm around her, a gesture as natural as breathing. They sat there for a long time watching the sky. The moon, half-shrouded, glowed with a muted light. And in that quiet, there was the same feeling as when it all began. An unspoken promise, a deep recognition. I used to think, she said softly, that life tries to fix what we never knew how to live right. And do you think it did? I do. Life gave back what was ours. Even if it came through the wrong paths. Especially because it did. Arthur looked at her, and the past seemed to dissolve. Only the present remained, simple, quiet, whole. The next morning, Laura woke early. She went to Henrique's room. He was sleeping, clutching a notebook. On the desk, a loose page, one sentence written in uneven, childish letters. Everything that's real always comes back. She folded the paper carefully, placed it inside her own journal, then looked out the window. The sun was just beginning to rise. Soft gold spilled across the horizon, as if the world had decided to start over. She thought about all they had lived, the pain, the losses, the lies, and finally, the surrender. And she understood. Fate was never the enemy, just a messenger that sometimes arrives late. Arthur appeared at the door. You okay? He asked softly. Yes, she whispered. For the first time. I really am. He stepped behind her. Together they watched the sunrise. The light touched their faces, merging old shadows with new promises. No words were needed. Time, once their enemy, now stood beside them. Truth, once a blade, had become their foundation. And as the day began outside, Laura held a quiet certainty in her chest. They had defeated fate, not by fighting time, but by waiting for the right moment to finally recognize each other. This time she knew. It wasn't coincidence. It was destiny, disguised as repair. And so ends another story about what time can destroy, and what love patiently rebuilds. Laura and Arthur proved that sometimes forgiveness isn't a new beginning. It's the moment pain finally stops screaming. They waited. They broke. They endured a lie that shattered them and still chose to believe. Not in the past, but in what could still be born from it. Because the truth is simple. Love doesn't save us. It gives us meaning. And life, no matter how cruel, always finds a way to return what's ours, even if in another time, another form, another soul. Now tell me, have you ever lived something that fate had to undo, only to return it the right way? Where are you watching this story from? Leave a comment, and if this story touched you in any way, share it. Someone out there in silence might be waiting for life to return what's theirs too.